They built 96 houses on my land, not by mistake, not because of confusion, but because they thought they could get away with it. When I tell people that, they laugh nervously, like I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. I inherited 47 acres of untouched forest in Colorado from my grandfather, land I'd never once thought to doubt was mine. When I drove there 3 years later, I found a subdivision. Asphalt, where my pine trees had stood. Street lights where deer used to wander, and families moving into homes that sat on the bones of everything my grandfather left me. I remember the gate first, the bold stone arch that read Ridgeline Heights, a Whitmore luxury community, the kind of sign that screams money. I parked at the edge of the road, my heart pounding, staring at the coordinates on my phone again and again. No mistake. Same land, same boundary lines. Only now it was paved over, landscaped, alive with voices that didn't belong to me. A security guard stopped me before I could even reach the main road. "Residents only," he said flatly. I told him I owned the property. He smirked and said, "Sure, and I'm Elon Musk." That's when she appeared, Cassandra Whitmore. 50-something, polished, expensive. The kind of woman who wore her arrogance like perfume. She stepped out of a white Range Rover with the confidence of someone who'd never heard the word no. Her linen outfit glowed under the sun, and when she looked at me, work boots, worn jeans, calloused hands, I saw it in her eyes. I wasn't a person to her, I was a nuisance. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice like sugar dipped in venom, "if you're looking for work, the crews are full. But I can take your number." When I told her my name, Dakota Flint, owner of this land, her smile sharpened. She said her lawyers confirmed the land was abandoned and claimed adverse possession made it hers. She'd already sold every home, 96 in total, 16 million in pre-set. I stood there stunned, clutching my phone with a photo of my grandfather's 1971 deed. She waved a business card at me like she was handing crumbs to a beggar. "Talk to our attorney," she said. "He'll explain why your claim is frivolous." Then she photographed my license plate. "In case you decide to come back and vandalize anything," she added. Her tone was cold, practiced, almost rehearsed. I got in my truck, the smell of concrete dust still clinging to my clothes, and drove home with a shaking grip on the wheel. That night, I spread my grandfather's old ledgers across the kitchen table, yellowed pages that smelled of tobacco and thyme. At the back of one was a note written in his cramped handwriting. "Don't let the bastards take what's yours." The next morning, I called the attorney on the card, a man named Brian Keir. His assistant said he was unavailable but could offer a nuisance. Settlement $15,000 if I signed a quit-claim deed. $15,000 for land worth $4 million. That was their play. Buy me off cheap before I figured out how deep this went. I hung up without another word and started searching for a real lawyer, the kind who scared other lawyers. My friend Marcus, a civil engineer in Cheyenne, gave me a name, Lydia Chen, a legend in property law. She'd once beaten a railroad company so badly they offered her a job just to make her stop suing them. When I met her, she didn't waste time on small talk. She was in her 60s, silver hair pinned tight, every word measured. "Show me your tax receipts," she said. I laid them out one by one, every annual payment since my grandfather's first in 1971. Every online confirmation since 2019. She studied them like evidence in a murder trial, then finally looked up. Colorado law requires 18 years of continuous, open, hostile possession and payment of property taxes. She said, "If you've been paying, they don't have a claim." I asked if we could stop construction. She shook her head. "No, let them finish." Her reasoning was brutal, but brilliant. If we halted construction, Cassandra's company would declare bankruptcy, and I'd be trapped in court for years with 100 innocent families. But if I let them finish, I'd own 96 completed homes on my land. "Once they build, they've committed fraud in the open," Lydia said. "When we file, they'll settle or go to prison." Her calm certainty steadied me. "How much?" I asked. 40, maybe 50,000 in legal fees," she said. I had 12,000 in savings. I heard myself say, "I'll figure it out." So I hired her that day, and I started watching every week. I drove to the site, parked on the public road, and filmed everything. Workers framing houses, painters spraying walls, landscapers laying sod. Each photo was time-stamped, every visit logged. Cassandra saw me once from a distance and made a call. 20 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up. The deputy looked uncomfortable as he asked for my license. "She says you're harassing her," he muttered. I told him to check Boulder County's property records. My name was right there. He sighed. "It's civil court stuff, but if she calls again, I'll have to act." Translation: she donated to his re-election campaign. I didn't argue. By Thanksgiving, families were already moving in. I watched them unloading U-Hauls, planting trees, waving to neighbors. They weren't the enemy, just people who'd been tricked into buying stolen land. That thought sat heavy in my chest. A week later, Cassandra sent me a certified letter. It accused me of harassment and included a photo of my truck, circled in red. When I showed Lydia, she laughed, actually laughed. "They're documenting their own fraud," she said. "Every letter, every complaint proves they know there's a dispute and kept building anyway." I wanted to feel relief, but I just felt cornered. "You are being stalked," she said plainly. "Let them waste money. We'll strike after the holidays." In the meantime, Lydia gave me homework. Find everything public about Cassandra Whitmore, business records, filings, financing, anything. What I uncovered made my stomach turn. Her company, Whitmore Development LLC, was registered in Delaware. Classic move for people hiding assets. Funding came from Ridgeline Capital Group, owned by her husband, Preston Whitmore. He'd been sued twice before for fraud and settled quietly both times. Their playbook was clear. File an adverse possession claim, start selling before anyone noticed, and let the courts clean up later. They'd done it before, and this time they'd picked the wrong target. When I sent the files to Lydia, she called me within an hour. "Dakota," she said, her voice almost gleeful. "This isn't just civil fraud anymore. This is criminal. And when we're done, they won't own a brick of what they built." That's when I realized my grandfather's words weren't just advice, they were prophecy. By December, I'd become half engineer, half detective. Every evening after work, I dug through county records, permit logs, and property filings until the names and numbers started forming a pattern. The Whitmores weren't just building houses, they were orchestrating a cover-up, using lawyers, fake filings, and silence as their construction materials. I began to see how they operated, create confusion, push paperwork through under pressure, and drown anyone who objected in bureaucracy. They didn't expect someone like me to have proof. They didn't expect me to keep every tax receipt, every survey map, every deed. They thought I'd give up. But they were building their empire on the wrong man's ground. The deeper I looked, the worse it got. Their permit documents claimed the land was tax delinquent and unclaimed. Yet I had 4 years of proof that I'd paid every cent. That one detail was enough to turn their defense into dust. Lydia said what they'd done wasn't just greedy, it was textbook fraud. You can't claim adverse possession on land someone's paying taxes for, she told me. They filed that claim knowing it wouldn't hold. They sold houses on it anyway. That's criminal intent. Her words felt heavy in the room. The gravity of it finally hit me. This wasn't just about a property dispute anymore. It was a war between truth and corruption. The Whitmores didn't take long to realize I wasn't backing down. A few weeks later, I got a call from Boulder County Code Enforcement. Some anonymous citizen had filed a report accusing me of running an illegal dumping site on the property. Piles of debris, hazardous waste, even abandoned cars. The inspector, a sunburned man named Rick Polson, met me at the entrance of Ridgeline Heights. We walked the entire perimeter together. Not a single scrap of trash, not a single old tire, just new homes sitting illegally on stolen ground. When we finished, Rick shook his head. "There's nothing here. Someone's wasting my time." He checked his clipboard, sighed, and added quietly, "The complaint came through Mrs. Whitmore's office." Then he lowered his voice. "Off the record, I've seen this before. She files fake complaints to pressure people near her projects. Classic intimidation tactic." That one sentence told me everything about who I was dealing with. Cassandra wasn't just ruthless, she was practiced. She'd done this to others before. Only this time, she was documenting her downfall in real time. Rick handed me his card and said, "If you need a witness statement, call me." I slipped it into my wallet like a weapon. Every fake report, every letter, every phone call, they were all stacking up like ammunition for Lydia to fire when the time came. By Christmas, 84 of the houses were occupied. From the road, I could see wreaths on doors, kids building snowmen, and Christmas lights tangled along rooftops. It was surreal. Families living on land I still legally owned. Families who had no idea they were caught in the middle of a storm. Lydia told me to stay calm. "Our case is airtight," she said. "We file in January. Let them have their holidays. You're going to win, but timing matters." I tried to trust her, but the waiting felt like holding my breath underwater. Then, just after New Year's, everything exploded. It started with a phone call from my daughter Emma. Her voice was tight, panicked. "Dad, did you get arrested?" she asked. I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Someone posted on Facebook saying you're harassing families in a neighborhood taking pictures of kids. It has hundreds of shares." My blood turned cold. When I opened the post, my name was there in bold letters, written by Cassandra herself. She called me a stalker, a threat, a man pretending to own their community. The comments were filled with rage, people calling me a creep, posting my truck's photo, warning others to stay safe. I felt sick. In a few hours, she had destroyed my reputation. I called Lydia in a panic. "She's calling me a predator online," I said. "My daughter's terrified." Lydia's voice was calm but sharp. "Do not respond. Screenshot everything. Every share, every comment, every message. This is defamation, and it strengthens our case. But if you fight back online, you'll look guilty." She was right. But it didn't make it easier. The next morning, my boss called me into his office. He said a client had seen the posts and didn't want me on their project. He had no choice but to put me on leave pending resolution. I walked out carrying a thin envelope and the weight of humiliation. People at work, people I'd known for years, avoided eye contact like I was contagious. That night, someone spray-painted pervert across my garage door in red. I filed a police report, but the officer looked tired and uninterested. "We'll increase patrols," he said flatly. Then he left. I spent that night sitting by the window with a baseball bat next to me, wondering how far Cassandra was willing to go. The answer came 3 days later when my daughter called me crying again. Someone had sent her the Facebook post directly with a message. "Your dad's a creep. Everyone knows it." I drove to her apartment, found her crying on the couch. When I told her the truth, the land, the lies, the lawsuit, I saw anger replace fear in her eyes. "Then fight back, Dad," she said. "You've been letting people run over you your whole life. It's time you hit first." Her words stuck. The next day, Lydia filed an emergency motion for a restraining order and added defamation and emotional distress to our lawsuit. "They're trying to break you down," she said. "This is their pattern, but we're close now." She was right. Every attack meant they were panicking. They wanted me gone before the court date. But I wasn't going anywhere. Then came the anonymous message. The night before our first court hearing, my phone buzzed with a blocked number. "Drop the lawsuit, or everyone finds out what you really are." I forwarded it to Lydia, and she replied instantly, "Perfect. Bring your phone tomorrow. We'll bury them." The next morning, I walked into the Boulder County Courthouse wearing my only suit, the same one from Emma's graduation, still tight around the shoulders. Lydia stood beside me, sharp as a blade in navy blue, her leather briefcase tucked under one arm. "You ready?" she asked. "Not really," I admitted. She smiled. "You will be." Across the room sat Cassandra and her husband Preston, whispering to their lawyers, confident and composed. They looked like they were at a business meeting, not a trial that could ruin them. When Judge Ramirez entered, the temperature in the room dropped. She was the kind of judge who saw through theatrics. Cassandra's attorney tried to dismiss the case immediately, claiming I'd abandoned the land. The judge interrupted him mid-sentence. "Did the plaintiff pay property taxes?" she asked. "Well, yes," the lawyer stammered. "Then your argument fails under statute," she said. "What else do you have?" He froze. Lydia stood slowly, her tone cool and deliberate. "Your Honor, we have evidence that the defendants knowingly sold homes on property they did not own." She opened her briefcase and slid a folder across the table. Exhibit A, an internal email between Preston and Cassandra Whitmore dated February 18, 2022. As the judge read it, the courtroom went silent. Preston's face drained of color. The email detailed everything: how they knew the land was mine, how they planned to build fast, sell faster, and bury me in litigation costs. It was proof of deliberate theft, in their own words. The judge looked up, eyes hard as steel. "Is this email authentic?" she asked. Preston didn't answer, but his silence was louder than a confession. The motion to dismiss was denied. The judge froze their sales, their marketing, and their transfers. Then she looked straight at Cassandra. "If I see one more Facebook post, one more anonymous complaint, or one more threat toward Mr. Flint," she said, "I will hold you in contempt." Cassandra nodded, her voice shaking. "Yes, Your Honor." Outside, Lydia smiled for the first time since we'd met. "That email," she said, "came from a whistleblower, Preston's ex-partner. He's been waiting years for payback." That was the moment I realized the tide had turned. For the first time in months, I wasn't drowning. Cassandra was. After the hearing, Lydia went into overdrive. She wasn't just fighting for my land anymore. She was dismantling an empire. She uncovered a trail of corruption that stretched across 7 developments. Every one of them followed the same blueprint: steal, sell, and disappear before anyone noticed. Cassandra and Preston had built their fortune on deception. Lydia planned to make sure it ended where it began, in a courtroom. The depositions were brutal. Preston sat under the white buzz of office lights, his confidence melting under Lydia's calm precision. Each question was a trap. Each answer dug him deeper. By the end, he admitted to writing the email, the one that proved they'd known the land was mine. Cassandra's attorney offered a smirk, but it didn't last. The truth was too heavy to spin. Desperation set in fast. "A private investigator harassed my son at work. Then, suddenly, I was under audit by the IRS, an obvious setup. Lydia called it what it was: intimidation. "They're finished," she said. "They just don't know it yet." Within days, the title company turned on them, handing over emails and payment records that confirmed every bribe, every lie. Their empire was crumbling from the inside. The trial came in February. The courtroom was packed: reporters, neighbors, and the very families living on my land. Lydia stood tall before the judge, her voice steady as she read the opening statement. "This isn't a mistake," she said. "It's a calculated theft. The witnesses confirmed it. The bribes, the forged filings, the harassment." Preston tried to defend himself, but the evidence buried him. Cassandra refused to testify, staring straight ahead as the world she'd built collapsed around her. When the verdict came, the judge's words hit like thunder. She ruled in my favor: full ownership of the property, millions in damages, and a referral for criminal prosecution. Cassandra was banned from real estate. Preston faced prison. The story that began with arrogance ended in ashes. But I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. So I gave the 96 families their homes through a community trust in my grandfather's name. I kept 5 acres and built a small cabin there. Every morning I wake to sunlight through pine trees and remember his words: "Don't let the bastards take what's yours." And I didn't.